The Panthers are 10.5-point underdogs at home on Sunday against the Rams, but in the NFL, it's any given Sunday, and we've already seen Carolina pull off a stunner before. I'll tell you how they can do it again right here on Locked On Panthers.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast, the part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Julian Council, talking Carolina Panthers with you every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and yes, of course, here on Black Friday, your team every day. That's our motto here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for watching the show right here on YouTube and listening wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Panthers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers, and that could be you, can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Back here once again on a Friday as the Panthers face off against the Los Angeles Rams here in this Week 13 NFC matchup. I hope everybody had a happy and safe Thanksgiving on Thursday, and hope you're enjoying some leftovers here on a Friday as we prepare for this matchup on Sunday where, look, Carolina's a 10.5-point underdog. I don't feel great about their chances at winning this game. It is still the NFL. Any given Sunday, it can happen. We saw it before earlier this season when they beat Green Bay on the road. Then the next week, they lost to a one-win Saints team. So any game can be won by any team. But I don't think this is a game that Carolina is going to win, but I also don't think it matters all that much. I'll tell you about that a little bit later on. The injury report will not be out until later on Friday, but Dave Canales did let us know who will not be available on Sunday. That includes Jaycee Horn, who's still in the concussion protocol. Go through that here momentarily, but let's start up this Friday as we start off every single Friday here throughout the regular season, and that's with my three keys of victory for the Panthers and their upcoming matchup. Key number one, the Panthers offense, as we know, this season really hasn't been that good. There's been a lot to be desired out of the pass game. The run game has been the one part that's been consistent throughout the season up until recently. Looking at the overall numbers, according to True Media, the Panthers are 26th in offensive EPA, that's expected points added. They're 24th in total pass EPA offensively and 12th in rushing EPA. So very clearly, this has been a solid run game, but one of the worst passing attacks in the NFL outside of that second half against Arizona and that spectacular Sunday that Bryce Young had 12 days ago down in Atlanta. That was then followed up 8 days later by what happened on Monday night, where the passing game went right back to what it had been, and then the rushing attack just disappeared. Only 9 carries for 54 yards for Rico, Dowdle, and Chuba Hubbard. Chuba had 3 carries. Rico had 6 carries. That is not a winning formula for Carolina, even if they're coming off of the best passing performance in the history of this organization that Bryce had with 448 yards against the Falcons. Their identity is still running the ball, and they really have not done that well over the last couple of weeks. The past 3 weeks, the Panthers are 30th in total rush EPA, and they're 31st in rushing success rate. Go back to week 5 through 9 when Rico was in there starting and everything turned around for this offense. They rank 3rd and 8th, respectively, in total rush EPA and rushing success rate during that 4-1 stretch. Now they're 1-2 the last 3 weeks because they haven't been able to run the ball. It's nice that Bryce threw the ball well against Atlanta, but he did not do that on Monday. Did not do that, of course, against New Orleans, and they did not run the ball. The Saints said, you're not going to beat us on the ground. Atlanta wanted to do the same thing, but then they got diced up through the air, and that's not a secondary that had that happen to them up until that point in time. In the last month of the season, the Falcons have given up some bigger passing games, but 448 yards, no one was anywhere close to doing that. They hadn't even get up 300 yards to a quarterback all season long until a couple of weeks ago. So fine, Atlanta, they're maybe not as good against pass as they've been, but they stopped the run. And in San Francisco, who's banged up all over defensively, there's no Fred Warner, there's no Nick Bosa. They were able to have success against the pass with the 2 interceptions, and also they didn't really have to face the run because Dave Canales didn't run the ball. Now, Dave did say on Tuesday that he's got to be better, that they can't get away from things like that. He wanted to see the passing game that was outstanding against Atlanta. Wanted to see if they could carry that over to that game on Monday night. Now, knowing just the trends of the season, it was unlikely, even if I had as one of my keys, let Bryce cook, it was unlikely that Bryce was going to have a 300-yard passing game, let alone throw for 200 yards in that game, because he hadn't really done it consistently so far this season and throughout his career here in Carolina. So run the damn ball. Dave talked about when he got here, being stubborn about running the football. And too many times it's felt like they've gotten away from it. He's always said, well, the score was, and he said this on Monday, in the second half, you're down 2 scores, you got to start throwing it. All right, sure, but you weren't running it to begin with. And then early in the season, when, yes, they've gotten down by 3 scores multiple times this year, they haven't run the ball then. But even early on in the game, you're asking yourself, where is the run game? Where is the balance offensively? They have not been able to do that. And when you look at the Rams, this is a really good defense, especially against the run. They are 5th in total rush EPA defensively. They're 10th in rushing success rate defensively. So it's not going to be an easy task. But if you're going to win this game, you're going to find a way to beat what I think is the best team in the NFL. You got to get back to running the ball effectively. And it would also be nice to have some balance for really the first time all season through the air and on the ground offensively for Carolina. Number 2, guys are going to have to step up. That's the key. Dudes are going to have to play on Sunday. You've got to step up, in particular in the secondary. Jaycee Horn in concussion protocol, not going to play on Sunday. Trevon Merrick punched the guy down low. He appealed, but yeah, he lost that suspension. He's not going to play on Sunday. Corey Thornton, fractured fibula, out for the rest of the season. That means Lathan Ransom, Shaw Smith-Wade, Caleb Evans, you guys are playing significant snaps on Sunday, along with Nick Scott, who I know you guys don't have a lot of confidence in, but he's out there available. And then Mike Jackson, not the best situation considering you're going against Matthew Stafford, the MVP favorite right now. Well, hold on. Let me double check that, because I have FanDuel on right now. I believe that he is the MVP favorite. Clicking. He is at minus 240. Matthew Stafford, the MVP favorite right now. And Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua, possibly the best wide receiver tandem this year in 2025. Devontae Adams leads the NFL with 12 receiving touchdowns this season. Puka Nacua has been outstanding. He's tied with Seattle's Jackson Smith and Jigba with 80 receptions, the most in the league. He also is 3rd in receiving yardage. Nacua is 5th amongst qualifying wide receivers in EPA per target this year. And both Adams and Nacua rank in the top 15 explosive receptions, 16 plus yards. Overall, the Rams offense is 6th in EPA per play and tied 1st in success rate. It's not going to be easy to stop these guys. It's going to be nice if Carolina can get some pressure off the edge, which they really haven't done this season. They're last in pressure percentage. We talked about that yesterday, and we really talked about that all season long. I don't really see that changing in the final 5 games of this season. Maybe in the offseason, they can just get more experience on the edge, or just the maturation of guys like Prince Mamiel and Nick Scorton will help them to be a better pass rush next season. We'll find out, but that's an issue that's not going to be fixed here in the final month of the season for Carolina. So guys got to step up. They're going to have to cover longer than you would like, but Lathan, Shaw, Caleb, this is your chance. Go make the most out of it. And then number 3, I say it every week, and gonna have to say it again because it's very important. Carolina cannot beat a team like LA if they turn the ball over. You can't do that. That's key number 3. Don't turn the ball over. The Rams are 2nd in the NFL in turnover margin at plus 12. 4th most points off turnovers this season LA has. That's 66. The Panthers opponents have 68 points off turnovers. That is the 2nd most in the league. If you turn it over even once in this game, I don't see how you win. Every single possession needs to be drawn out, which goes to running the ball, but you need to be able to maintain field position. You need to be able to hold on to the ball, get to the other side of the field, and capitalize once you get into the red zone. Like, that's how you win this game on Sunday. Any possession that ends in a turnover, whether you're right there in scoring position in your own territory, that is likely going to result to 7 points for LA and is not going to put you in a position to win this game on Sunday. So those are my 3 keys: victory, don't turn the ball over, step up in the secondary, and get back to running the daggone ball. We'll see if Carolina can do that on Sunday as they face off against the Rams, but they'll be without a couple of key corners, linebackers, and the offensive line, another new starting combination. We'll talk about that here in just a moment on Locked On Panthers. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers, and that could be you, $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Do this for me. Sign up for FanDuel if you haven't already and get this bet in before this evening on Friday at, I believe, 7:30, 8 o'clock. Indiana, undefeated, 11-0, facing off against their arch rivals, the Purdue Boilermakers, who are 2-9. They're terrible. Put $5 on IU, money line, and $300 in bonus bets. It can be yours. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here on Locked On Panthers, let's take a look at the Week 13 injury report for your Panthers heading into this matchup against the Los Angeles Rams. Cornerback going to be a new-looking room this Sunday as Jaycee Horn is still in concussion protocol and will not play. Not a huge surprise when you have any sort of injury on a short week. Like if it was an injury on Sunday and Carolina's playing on Thursday, always a tough turnaround, even with Monday to Sunday. Obviously, probably at the beginning, you knew he was not going to play. And here's the thing. It's different if it's a shoulder, if it's an ankle where he can just get it shut up and he can just try to play through it. With concussions nowadays in the NFL here in 2025, there's just no way of getting around it. Either he's cleared to go or he's not cleared to go. So the Panthers, they have nothing to do with that. It's all with the independent neurologist, the NFL. So JC will not clear concussion protocol, will not be available on Sunday. Corey Thornton, who came in for JC, when JC went out at halftime, he fractured his fibula there on the first drive defensively of the second half. He's done for the season and on IR, which means that Shaw Smith-Wade, who had been starting at nickel before being replaced by Thornton the last 2 weeks, he'll be back out there starting, I would think, primarily on the outside of Caleb Evans. Will also rotate in there. I would think he's likely going to play more of the nickel, especially with Trevon Merrick, who played big nickel last week with Lathan Ransom starting there. He ended up being suspended and losing his appeal, not shockingly, after he punched Juwan Jennings in the groin. We'll say that. But yeah, not ideal for this to be the situation for them, as Shaw Smith-Wade and Caleb Evans are going to both have to start. You're going to also have Lathan Ransom starting at safety this week. The Panthers did sign Robert Rochelle off the Cowboys practice squad, so he'll be active potentially. At least he'll be on the active roster. We'll see if he'll be elevated. Not elevated. We'll see if he'll be active on game day. And then they also signed David Long to the practice squad. David did not say anything about having him elevated to go on Sunday. So that's where things stand with the cornerbacks. Looking at linebacker, Trevin Wallace is back after missing the past 2 weeks of a shoulder injury, something that's really bothered him since the Bills game. They just needed to give him a couple of weeks to get through the pain, to get that thing healed up as best it could. I'm guessing it's going to be something that bothers him the rest of the year. It's just going to be overall pain tolerance. And they're in a good spot where, okay, you missed 2 weeks. We'll get you out there this week. You got to buy a week to get healthy again before going to play New Orleans in the last 3 games after that. So Trevin Wallace, good to go. Back out there on Sunday. We'll be wearing the green dot. Christian Roseboom, who suffered a hip/hamstring injury. I only saw the hamstring. I don't know where the hip occurred, but he suffered a hamstring injury at that end of the fourth quarter against Atlanta a couple of weeks ago. He will miss his second straight game with the hip and hamstring that they have him listed on for the injury report, so he's not going to go. Claude Sherrillis, who started in place of Wallace and Roseboom the last 2 weeks respectively, he went out last week on Monday with a concussion, or I guess earlier this week on Monday with a concussion. And like Jaycee Horn, too quick of a turnaround. He's still in concussion protocol and will be out this week and should be good to go, hopefully, by time they come back from the bye against New Orleans in a couple of weeks' time, which means that Chris Barnes, who was signed back during training camp, and this was a guy that we had talked about. All right, looking at Carolina, Josie Jewell surprisingly was let go, was waived by the Panthers right as they got to training camp. And there was talks too about maybe Josie could come back at some point this season. I would think that this would be a great point in time for him to come back if he's coming back at all, and no really update there. I don't think anybody asked about that this week. I was not able to go to any availability this week with the holiday. So I don't know what the situation is with Josey Jewell potentially coming back to Carolina, but right now that appears to not be the case at all for him this season. But once he was out, it came down to Roseboom and Wallace, and I don't think there's a lot of confidence in the guys behind him. Now, Claude and Sherrillis had started a couple games last year, so yes, he had some experience. That was nice to have. Colby Windman had start a couple games last year as well. He was out there during training camp, but they needed another veteran, and Chris Barnes was that guy. Now, he did not initially make the 53-man roster, but he's been around on the practice squad and then was signed to the active roster this week, as he's already had his 3 standard elevations used this year and had to be signed to the active roster if he's going to play another game for the Panthers this year. So he'll start in place of Roseboom on Sunday. And then Isaiah Simmons, remember him back in 2020? A lot of debate among Panther fans whether to draft Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson or Derek Brown out of Auburn. Thank God that I can't believe I'm saying this, that Marty Herney was the general manager and that you and I and anybody else who may have wanted Isaiah Simmons were not the general managers, as they instead, of course, take Derek Brown, who's gone on to be a Pro Bowler, one of the best defensive tackles in the game, and has made a whole lot of money. While Simmons is just bouncing around the league and now is bounced around here to Carolina, he'll be elevated from the practice squad for special teams purposes, which is something that Dave actually brought up on Wednesday when he spoke to the media, and more so than him being a guy who could help him out at linebacker or safety. But he will be, of course, insurance there at safety and linebacker, but primarily they need him at special teams. And that's a big thing when you're missing guys in the secondary and at linebacker. Those are a lot of your special teams core players, and they need Isaiah Simmons mainly for that. So we'll see how that plays out if he does have to play any significant defensive snaps on Sunday as well. The offensive line has been banged up all year long, but that standard really has not dropped off. They have still played at a really high level, considering the fact that they're going to be starting their 10th different combination in 13 games on Sunday. Cade Mays had an ankle pop up late last week. He did not play on Monday. He will not play again this Sunday. Chandler Zavala was injured in the first half on Monday with a calf injury. He will be out on Sunday as well. So this is second straight game for Mays that he's missed. Zavala missing again. So we're looking at Ike Ekwonu at left tackle, Damian Lewis at left guard, Austin Corbett at center, Jake Kurhan. Congratulations for folks who've been begging for Kurhan to be in there at right guard. He'll start at right guard, and then Taylor Moton at right tackle. Behind them will be Nick Samak, who will be the backup center. Of course, Josh Nyman. And then after that, it gets kind of dicey for Carolina on the offensive line. So again, the 10th different starting combination in 13 games. And my expectation is that those guys will still play well, and they'll give Carolina a chance to win. Incredible that this team is sitting at 6-6, despite all the shifting that's gone with the offensive line this season, especially when you look across the league or around the league. Plenty of teams, when they have the kind of injuries Carolina's had in the offensive line, fall apart. We have seen it firsthand here in Carolina back in 2021, in 2023, when they've had offensive line injuries. They did not have the depth. They fell apart. It was so important for Dan Morgan, Brant Tillis, Dave Canales to bring back the top 9 that they had on the team last year. And also stay tuned. Dave did say around the bye week is when Robert Hunt potentially could have his practice window opened up. So potentially, maybe post-bye, heading against New Orleans in those final 4 games, maybe we see Robert Hunt back in there for the final playoff push for the Panthers. And speaking of that, the game on Sunday is obviously important because you don't want to lose. You don't want to be 6-7 going to the bye. If you look at the remaining schedule and what you have in front of you, I really don't think this game is that important. I think there's far more important games remaining on the Panthers schedule. I'll tell you why here in just a moment on Locked on Panthers. Did any of you get a chance a couple weeks ago to see what Pat Narduzzi had to say before his team faced off against Notre Dame? Pat Narduzzi, the head coach of the Pittsburgh Panthers in the ACC, had some interesting comments heading into what was a pretty big game for his Pitt Panthers as they were hosting College Game Day and hosting the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. He said the game didn't matter, that they could lose by 100 points. He wouldn't care as long as Pitt won their final 2 ACC games against Georgia Tech, who they were up 28-0 against on Saturday night, and then this weekend against Miami. Didn't matter. As long as that they won the last 2 games, got a little help, and made the ACC championship game here in Charlotte, and then won that and went to the playoff. Notre Dame game had no bearing on the result of their season and their championship aspirations. And buddy, did he mean it, as Pitt got destroyed against Notre Dame and then came back, as I mentioned, and won against Georgia Tech on Saturday night down in Atlanta. That's kind of how I'm viewing this game. Now, it's insane that a coach would actually say out loud ahead of a massive game for a program that's fan base really is not that energized, that he would ever come out and say, yeah, this game doesn't matter. We're focused on the 2 conference games left, and if we win those, then everything should work out the way, hopefully, that we want it to work out. I'm kind of feeling the same way when looking at this game against the Rams, because the Panthers still have 3 divisional games left. And yes, they have a game against Seattle as well, who's outside the division, also in the NFC West, like the Rams. So I'm looking at this as a game that, yeah, it matters, but I don't think it matters that much. What the focus needs to be for Carolina, and this is not obviously going to be their focus, but the way I'm focused on this week is go out there, don't pick up any injuries, try to find a way to find any sort of balance offensively, get the run game going at the very least, and then get to the bye week, likely at 6-7, get healthy, come out of it, and go on the road and get revenge against a team that you are absolutely better than and should not have lost to a couple weeks ago. And sitting at 7-7, if they lose this week and beat the Saints out of the bye, 7-7, 3 games remaining, 2 of them back-to-back at home against Tampa and against Seattle, and then on the road, week 18 at the Bucs. It's like all right there in front of you, whether you win this game or not on Sunday. It's really that straightforward to me. You look at Tampa currently, they're 6-5. Baker Mayfield, he had a shoulder injury last Sunday night. It's an AC sprain. I said all week, I think that maybe he misses a game, but if anything, they'll just shoot him up, put a harness on it. He'll go out there and play. It's a non-throwing shoulder. Yes, it's going to hurt. It's a pain tolerance thing. Baker will be fine. He's going to get it out the rest of the season for Tampa, and that appears to be the case on Sunday, that he'll be out there starting against the Cardinals. The Bucs, they're reeling. They've lost 3 out of 3 in a row. Now that's been against good teams. It's been Buffalo, it's been New England, and it's also been against the same Rams team Carolina's going to play on Sunday, but they've lost 3 straight. They've lost 4 out of 5. They're really banged up. Now they do have one of the easiest closing stretches in the NFL here in the final month and a half. Second easiest, actually. They have Arizona at home on Sunday. They have home against New Orleans or home against Atlanta. So that's 3 straight home games. Then at Carolina, at Miami, and then home against the Panthers. And you look at tankathon.com, they say that every single one of those games is an easy opponent. Now, the Panthers game, I don't look at that as being an easy game for Tampa, especially with the injury situation the Bucs had. Now, Carolina's got to get healthy as well. That will be a tough game. Miami, they've won 2 in a row. They've appeared to get their ish together. So that could potentially be a tough game sandwiched in between the Panthers game on the road for Tampa and the game at home for Tampa against Carolina. So I just look at this. If the Bucs win the rest of their games outside from the games against Carolina, they're 10-7. If the Panthers lose this Sunday, which I think is going to be the case, they beat New Orleans, they sweep Tampa, beat Seattle, they're 10-7, they win the division. It's that simple. And if the Bucs just slip up one time, all Carolina has to do is win their 3 divisional games. And I know easier said than done, but that's the Narduzzi of it all. One slip up for Tampa. It does not matter what happens on Sunday against the Rams or what happens in week 17 against the Seahawks. As long as you win your 3 divisional games at New Orleans, home against Tampa, and at Tampa, you're 10-7, 9-8 rather, and you're going to the playoffs. So I don't really look at this game with any sort of thought of, oh, if they lose, oh, it's terrible. No, I really, of course, would like to see them win. It would be a great win for them. It would put them in an even better spot heading into the final 4 games where truly, yes, if they just beat Tampa twice and then get one more win, which should be against New Orleans, then they win a division. That simply. But for me, I can see the Bucs losing another game. And I can see that where this game doesn't matter. Seattle doesn't matter. What matters is getting to 5-1 in the division. And that would be good enough at 9-8 to host a playoff game at home for the first time since 2015 season. So, yeah, of course you want them to win. Of course, every game matters. But as far as what's in front of the Carolina Panthers, they can afford to lose this game. And they can come right back after the bye, beat New Orleans, take care of business against Tampa and Seattle, and 10-7, and their dreams have come true. Or One slip up by the Bucs, as I mentioned, they don't have to beat Seattle. They don't have to beat the Rams. Who cares about getting a wild card? You want to win a division anyways. 5-1 in the division. There it is. That's all I'm focused on right now when looking at this Carolina Panthers team. So, yeah, you want to win. You need to get healthy. You want to see some guys step up. All that's important. What's more important is handling divisional games in the final 5 weeks this season. And that may be just enough to finally get this team over the top. So we'll see how it all plays out on Sunday, and we'll talk about it here, of course, on Locked On Panthers. But that's going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Panthers podcast. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, hosted by yours truly, Julian Council. Again, y'all subscribe or follow the show for free over on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. And be sure to follow me, Julian Council, over on Twitter and over on Blue Sky at Julian Council, where I'll be back next Wednesday answering your weekly Wednesday mailbag questions. All you got to do is at me or DM me over on Twitter and over on Blue Sky at Julian Council to get those questions into me immediately following the game on Sunday. In the meantime, be safe, be happy, be whole. As always, keep pounding. And I'll be here on Sunday live inside Bank of America Stadium, breaking down the Panthers-Rams game. Tune in then, and I'll talk to y'all later.